RNG. That's what brings this mediocre character to a somewhat above average character. Except, he's kinda funny. Being a character accessible through the holy grail of $5.99 means Hero comes with an extra unique element added in. His down special, which appears at the bottom of the screen with 4 selectable moves that are randomly selected out of a total of 21 different spells. That's almost as much as your average Smash character. Despite that, applying menu into your gameplay requires a skill very much outside of any of Smash's fundamentals. Reading. Spells require a limited resource to use, and with so many of them, they can't all be used in every scenario. And with some of them even having negative effects, it means you can't just blindly select spells. So to make the most out of this move, you need really good reading comprehension, as every frame it takes to decide can be a difference maker. For me, this is a bit of a problem, as I haven't read a book in years. But I do like to read this, so I'm fine, I think. At this point, I personally feel like I can read decently fast. Now, I don't live in America, so perhaps that's not as big of an advantage as it really could be, but I still feel like I have the upper hand when pulling out menu most of the time. Then again, it feels like some people don't even try to read. Regarding the spells themselves, there's a lot of ground to cover here. So let's start with 2 of the spells that are often considered among the best. Zoom and Acceleratle. These moves kind of piss me off. Yes, both of these moves are really good and Hero would be a worse character without them. But I still have a bit of a grudge with them, coming perhaps from what I expect when picking these moves and the eventual result. Let's start with Zoom. Going for it off stage is quite the commitment, because you're essentially putting your stock in Menyu's hands hoping it will give you this instant recovery move. Because if you change your mind and decide to recover the pathetic traditional non-DLC way with up special after already gambling on Zoom, it makes your recovery much more linear because of the time you just spent getting closer to the blast zone. So in my opinion, it's best to go all in. Because the odds for a Zoom are significantly raised when off stage, going from 22% to 51% in a single try, 76 with 2, 89 with 3, which makes it all the more annoying when I'm off stage and I down B 3 times, only for Zoom to not show up, getting me killed, and then when I respawn... But let's assume it shows up, which with the odds mentioned, it often does. Pros of Zoom. It allows for a recovery without having to bother putting any brain power on how to circumvent an opponent's edge guarding capabilities, and instantly skips the ledge trapping phase, which gives Hero an easy way back into fighting on neutral grounds, which is actually kind of broken because I have to cast our war criminals at the ledge. Cons of Zoom. Sometimes it seems people just have a vision and just know where I'm going to end up. Getting caught out by something like Ganon's up smash is somewhat understandable given its huge arc, but when people commit to a highly specific spot and it actually works out, it just blows my mind. Thankfully, there is some justice in the world. TLDR, it's a great move. As for Acceleratle, this is way more nuanced as it's more than just a move to get you out of disadvantage, as it's a move that can get you out of disadvantage and also forces you to change the entirety of how Hero has to play for the duration of it. Acceleratle is somewhat regarded as Hero's best spell, and for a good reason, as he gets some of the best movement stats in the game. Not only being able to outrun Sonic, but getting the fastest airspeed in the game as well, which arguably makes him a top tier with it active. It also makes him incredibly difficult to play. The rest of Hero's moveset was clearly not built for this type of overwhelming speed. At his core, Hero is still a pretty basic sword character, and as such he has to space his moves and be meticulous about his timings. And this is anything but meticulous. There's a clear discrepancy between the movement and frame data, and this is at its most obvious when trying to dash attack somebody. Also, because of the insane fall speed, sometimes you can just die like a hamster. Acceleratle somewhat felt like playing Dr. Speed Art Shulk, because unlike Shulk, you can't just shit out hitboxes in the same way, so it really takes some time getting used to it, which can be a big ask for a buff that only lasts for 10 seconds. But eventually, you can see the joy and whimsy this move has to offer. Especially in advantage state, because there is truly no other character in the roster who can move like this. And if you look at top level hero gameplay, it becomes much clearer why Acceleratle is seen the way it is. Most other spells really don't have this level of nuance to them and are just variations of I am going to fucking kill you. Bang, kaboom, flame slash, crackle slash, whack, thwack, sizz, sizzle, snooze and magic burst are all really strong. I kind of wish these moves are accessible via a consistent input and not a randomized rectangle in the bottom of my screen strong. The menu obviously also functions as a sort of balancing tool for some of these otherwise broken moves, as the forced reading essentially makes the actual startup of these moves way higher than if they'd be on their own. So anything that helps with picking spells faster makes Hero's gameplay way better. Initially, I was forcing myself to pick spells really quickly, which didn't really work out all that well. Because for me, that meant I just default to the second option, and if that was a good spell, great! But if it wasn't, well, something to know that can help make quicker decisions is priming. But what is priming? Essentially, by using menu, it eliminates multiple spells from showing up in the next one, which also raises the odds for all of the other spells to appear. It's probably a bit easier to visualize in the context of a more two-dimensional character. Game & Watch's judge has 9 different numbers, all corresponding to similar looking attacks with various effects, with the number 9 being far and away the best one. Game & Watches rarely go for this low 1 in 9 chance, but when they do, it's quite often preceded by another number, taking it out of the queue and thus boosting all the other numbers' odds, even if slightly. With Hero's menu, it's the same concept, just of course with a lot more nuance to it. But at minimum, it does cross off 4 spells to not show up in the next menu, meaning you know what to expect just a bit better. And the more you expect something, the easier it is to react to. It also makes it so you don't end up looking like an idiot, because in the zoom clip that I showed earlier where it didn't show up for 3 menus in a row, in the previous menu, zoom already appeared, meaning that in my first menu off stage, it actually had a 0% chance of showing up. It also means that the numbers I said were wrong, so yeah. Helps to know your character! Alongside that, over time you of course start to naturally get better at comprehending the spells faster. Nowadays, I often pick spells based on the first 2 letters I see, which works pretty well, except for one small caveat. This is kind of a problem, because 2 of these are some of the best spells available, a massive 35% projectile and a frame 6 freezing attack with a massive hitbox. In contrast, the other 2 are slightly detrimental when picked accidentally, a literal self-destruct and a pseudo shield break, so complete carelessness isn't really up for consideration. Regardless, some more about the clang. I didn't think this was a spell I wanted to elaborate on, however, I've clanged accidentally enough times to notice that people often have difficulties when trying to punish this move. There are 29 frames of end lag, which is normally enough time to react. However, Smash Ultimate Online sucks, and also typically you would want to punish this move with a move as strong as possible, like a smash attack, which usually have a good amount of startup, so the punish window ends up being quite small. Another factor is that the medal duration lasts for 5 seconds, but the amount of time you can charge a smash attack for is only 3 seconds, so if people start charging too soon, they're just forced to release the attack before the invincibility runs out. Which, you know, it does feel great to get away with such a blatantly stupid mistake. And I'd love to say that this is a prevalent issue among hero players, but the fact that people somewhat consistently miss their punish on a completely idle opponent due to the fact that they don't know the timing of when the clang goes away, kinda makes me feel like I'm alone on this one. Now, regardless of how fast you can read or how good you are at picking the correct moves, what you quickly learn as a hero player, however, is that many people just do not give a fuck about what it says on there. They don't see a $5.99 DLC character ready to potentially unleash 4 immensely powerful moves. What they see is a mediocre sword character who, if pressured in any way, might just blow up. So they just rush in with no consideration for what's on that menu. Sometimes though, this can be the right choice. Looking at Hero's matchup chart, characters who heavily disincentivize menu, whether that be through incredibly long range or overwhelming speed, are considered losing. So seeing how people react to menu is something to consider in a match. A lot of people though, just don't care, regardless of what 4 moves pop up. Hell, some people don't even care when a spell is already active. This maybe begs the question, what if I don't care? Hero players also have the option to not read what's on the menu. Typically, this is referred to as top decking, where you instantly select the first move that's on the menu without even giving it a single frame of thought about what it is. Let's imagine as hero we want to top deck somebody that's about 1 Donkey Kong's worth of length in front of us. What are the chances we get a good spell in the top slot? Of course, what's considered good is subjective, so let's start with 7 spells that I don't think anybody would disagree on in calling them good. Now within these 7, some are obviously better than others, but they all give at least a decent outcome without an outrageous amount of startup or end lag. This might seem pretty low as it's only a third of the available spells, but not all spells have the same chances of showing up. With that, the chances that one of these spells sits at the top spot is 44.6%, which I think is already decent. However, let's say our opponent were to be at a high percent. Whack and Thwack have pretty high chances to instantly KO, and I think it's pretty fair to add them to the list of good spells, which would then increase the odds of top decking a good spell to 51.9%. There's a couple more moves that can be really good, but the drawbacks are too big for them to be consistently considered good, which leaves us with 51.9%. This is way larger than the chance for something truly bad to happen, as most of the other 48.1% is more so mediocre than bad. Of course, this 51.9% isn't really a consistent number. Because of what I explained earlier in regards to priming, it can be lower or higher. Conclusion? It's good enough to where you can do it to someone in close range without feeling like you're completely throwing. But it's also not good enough to the point that it's not funny. Because it's funny as fuck. Overall, command selection is a very nuanced move. One nuanced move. Yeah, this entire video so far has been about one move. There's still an entire character left. Excluding down special, which is a special move, you still have his normal specials and his normal moves, mostly consistent of sword attacks. The rest of hero specials are all moves that have 3 chargeable stages to them, each with varying uses. And like down special, use the MP bar. One thing I didn't expect to be here is the sickest kill confirm in the game, and it utilizes a tech called Let's Slip the Swoosh, hero's fully charged up special. By doing a dash close to the ledge, charging up B and then flicking the control stick forward after a few frames, it allows you to slip off while charging with no forward momentum, which allows you to put up B's hitbox below the ledge while also grabbing it, which allows you to attack straight away and follow up with an extremely satisfying looking down air. When you know exactly how it works, it's actually incredibly consistent and something that often takes stocks. The only downside is that because of the time to charge, it won't work if your opponent can recover quickly. But in that case, you don't need to go for the full charge. Because the 3 different versions of up B all each take longer to complete, the first and second charges can make for a super weird stage tech timing. But even outside of edge guards though, it's kind of a fun move to use offensively. It's also hero's fastest out of shield. And it also functions as a recovery move, but that's like, whatever, you know. Neutral B is your pretty standard chargeable projectile. Frizz can kill confirm, Frizzle is the fastest, and Kafrizz is by far the strongest. But all of them are my last desperate option if I have no clue what to do in neutral. Side special is the real definitive neutral tool in Hero's toolkit. Zap is already really good and sets the tone that even without menu, Hero isn't your average sword character. But Zapple is ridiculous in terms of the range it has. Alongside its solid damage and kill power, you couldn't ask for a better move to contest the mid-range. Because of how far it goes, it also works as a great checkmate for when people directional air dodge off stage. And Kazap is just kind of happy to be there. The biggest BS factor outside of menu in Hero's kit is actually found in his seemingly basic sword attacks. And that obviously comes in the form of even more RNG. Hero's smash attacks have a 1 in 8 chance to be a critical hit, dealing significantly more damage and knockback. Even though it's another aspect of Hero that has looked at it, it's nothing like command selection and is more in line with most of the other significant RNG moves in the roster. Whereas menu is very nuanced in the options it can give and the decisions you make with it, this on the other hand is more RNG that says, hey, fuck you. A pretty standard move otherwise, broken if you get a lucky roll. And the best part, Hero can kill confirm into it, from 0%. It's really funny, and it's also the only actual use for up smash, because this move is garbage. Despite being visually close to other up smashes, it's lacking one major trait, a scoop hitbox, meaning that this move only hits above you. And I know, right, crazy concept, an up smash that only hits above you, that sounds pretty normal, but look at the roster and try to name one other character with an up smash that only hits above them. You can't. Like what, were they having a famine for scoop hitboxes when Hero was in development? This makes it almost impossible to hit an up smash as Hero without doing some absolute nonsense. You'd think it's this way because of balance. Because with a scoop hitbox, Hero could crit up smash out of shield, which does sound pretty insane, and it kinda makes sense to not have that. But then fucking Kazuya comes around and it's like... Outside of that, not much noteworthy stuff. The rest of his moves are pretty basic, but they do well in covering the fact that none of Hero's spells are good at covering the space above him. The two slashes can, but it's very annoying playing the will they, won't they, double jump 50-50. Hero's Nair and forward air are both great for this as they both start above him before going in front, and up tilt is just an insane anti-air. Up air is surprisingly good too, but more so for... One of the more standout moves in terms of Hero's normals is surprisingly his jab. It's the best move he has for covering the space in front of him quickly with decent horizontal and vertical range, until you get reminded that Smash is a 3D fighting game. Hocus Pocus. Even though it's part of the 21 moves that can appear when using menu, I hadn't mentioned it before, because Hocus Pocus is different. It's a special move that's inside of a specially made special move. It's a box inside a box, even though with this you don't have the option to pick. So let's see.
2, 1, go!